Good morning. Welcome to part three of our four-part webinar series on ability to benefit. Today, we're going to focus on supportive services, which many of you know, whether you work in adult education or a technical college or a state college, it is a critical component for so many of our students in order for them to have success. So while we introduce ourselves, please take a moment to drop your name and the organization that you're representing in the chat box. We want to know where you're from and who's joining us today. So again, my name is Yolanda Flores, and I've worked across multiple areas of education during a span of 30 years, including, of course, adult education, migrant, refugee, and the technical colleges. And joining me today is an expert in ability to benefit, Michael Johnston from Pensacola State College. Michael?
Thank you so much, Yolanda. I appreciate that. And it's so great to join you again today on our multi-part series associated with ability to benefit. And it's great to see so many people here attending from all over our state. And as Yolanda mentioned, she is so generous in giving me that wonderful kudo about the expertise and ability to benefit. And we are an organization at Pensacola State College that is leveraging this federal opportunity. And we have recently been awarded the ability to offer ability to benefit, which I know sounds like a tongue twister, but we've recently been awarded the ability to offer ability to benefit. So in my capacity, I'm one of our associate vice presidents, and I support many areas on our campus. I support our institutional research area. I support a lot of our data analytics, most of our data analytics, and then also our financial aid department. So I got to work very intensely with our financial aid director on this process and really understanding it to the best of our abilities and the impact that we potentially are opening up in our local areas. So I'm really fortunate to be able to share with you the experiences that I've had in combination with the experiences that Yolanda has had working with students in adult education in her tenure in academia. Thank you for that introduction. And just to let everyone know that we're in webinar mode. And what webinar mode means is that everyone's going to be muted, but allow us to answer questions that come into the chat. And I see everyone here is leveraging the chat pretty well. And I think we are all becoming pros or are pros at leveraging using the Zoom technologies. So this webinar is going to be recorded. It is being recorded, and the webinar recording will be posted to the IPDA website within 48 hours of completion of this. So if you want to sit back and watch the webinar and not have to worry about taking notes, feel free to do so. You'll also be able to send a link to your colleagues or rewatch this at any other time. So please feel free at any time during the presentation to chime in and answer or ask any questions that you may have for us to answer. Wonderful.
All right. So let's go over the outcomes by the end of this session. Hopefully, you'll be able to define the role of supportive services in helping ability to benefit students so that they can persist in post-secondary education. Of course, be able to identify some critical support services for students and also be able to look at what other colleges around the country are offering when it comes to supportive services. And again, understand that ability to benefit students in order to continue to stay engaged and be able to achieve their goals, those supportive services are critical for their success.
Absolutely, Wanda. I think you're hitting on a lot of good points, and you're right. This is sort of a good natured program for some topics for almost all students, but recognizability benefit students are very unique because not only do they have to hit those objectives that are associated with their program study and complete their competitive study, but they also have to hit the objectives associated with the ability benefit. So these students are navigating a couple different worlds at the same time. So we're definitely looking forward to that and hitting on these outcomes for our students and outcomes for this presentation today. But colleagues, we love interactivity. So for us, that's something that's so important because we want to make sure that we have the ability to engage with you and we can learn. And we use Menti, we use Mentimeter in order for us to start the day. So this is going to be some fun icebreakers, and this allows everyone here to join the experience and start with some fun questions for us to start the day off with this session, and then also make sure that we can use Mentimeter. So colleagues, if you scan the QR code before, or if you just go to menti.com and use the code that's up at the top there, the 27644548, we just want to know, if you were to have one superpower as an icebreaker, what would it be? So hopefully, colleagues, if you are not able to access Menti, shoot a message in here so we can try to navigate that off. Awesome. So we already see people here that are responding. We are going to be using Menti throughout the presentation to learn about your interpretation of these outcomes. But we would love everyone to log in. This is going to be the same code and the same site that we're going to use throughout the entire presentation. So if we can get a couple more responses on here to see this special power, what special power would our colleagues have? And I do agree that some of these would be fantastic. Go to read minds. I think we do have some mind readers out there, especially those that work in adult education. They have to read minds. But we see time as definitely something top of the mind here. We have people that want to come here. Oh, that's awesome. Cure severe disease and illness. Time traveling is important. Oh, you want to let others read your mind? Okay, I definitely. So your superpower is very benevolent to allow others to be able to read your mind, so that way you don't have to worry about the misinterpretation. So world peace, I agree. If we can have that as a total wonderful outcome, that would be fantastic. Well, it looks like everyone here is jumping in and being able to use the Menti, and we're all becoming pretty familiar with it. So it is something that we appreciate because it allows a little bit more interactivity with everyone here today. Again, this is going to be the same area this is going to be the same area. It's going to be the same website we're going to be using through all of our different mentees. And we do have 5 different mentees we're going to be using today in order to gauge and understand your interpretation of our presentation, but then also ways for you to engage and confirm with us. So we see here that we have a very benevolent group of people, and we would expect that because we are working with adult educators. So we have people that want to feed the world, people that want peace and earth, a lot about time, and then a lot about mind reading. So we appreciate you today. Still providing these responses and engaging in this. So for our next mentee, have you ever seen an adult education student drop or stop out? So colleagues that are working here in adult education, maybe colleagues that we see are present that don't necessarily work directly with adult education. What is your current experience with seeing students that are in adult ed drop or stop out? And this is just a, one of 3 questions. So if you could add your thoughts and be able to select your experience here, we would appreciate that to help gauge the subject matter of which we can see today. I think when Yolanda and I have discussed within the past is that our areas in Florida, Yolanda is much more experienced with working with different areas in Florida, but we have seen adult ed change in different areas of Florida. And we are always so excited to learn about that. But in this question, we would love to know, have you seen in your experience adult education students drop or stop out of their academic program? So we have 11 responses. Yes, Yolanda.
No, and as I see the responses coming in, right? Everyone at some point that has responded has seen adult education students drop out or stop out, right?
Mhm.
And as I can see from the people that have listed their names and where they're from, we have quite great representation from the technical colleges and the state colleges. So they also have seen these students that drop out for a variety of reasons. But I think the more that we can do as institutions to understand why they're dropping out, the better equipped that we can become when we're structuring programs, to structuring them in a way so that we can minimize some of this dropout, right? I don't think we'll ever be able to eliminate it, but we can minimize it.
Exactly. And I think that's what our goal is here today, is to figure out the issues, to figure out how we can then provide opportunities to overcome those barriers. So that last question was a multiple choice response question. So this one might take a little bit more thought to be able to exemplify. So colleagues, in your opinion, what is the most common cause or primary reason that's associated with a student that's in the ability benefit program to stop or withdraw, or stop from attending? So if you were to think about students that are in this ability benefit program, and if you're new to this ability benefit series, we're going to go and do a summary of what ability benefit is, because we know not everyone's been able to attend all of these series. But what would you consider to be the most common or primary reason that a student in this program would have to stop from attending and they would not be able to complete? And this is an open-ended response, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you want to, you can submit more than one. So even though it's not more primary, but I do recognize in different groups of students, that a primary reason may be different based on certain students and their groups. So just looking at some of these, we have people that are juggling school with work and family obligations, and that is definitely, I think, something that would impact our students in an ability to benefit program. Finances are always a blocker. Can't tell you how many students that I've worked with where they want to go to school, but they have to leave their current work because maybe their current work doesn't allow them to attend a traditional academic program that has a requirement for attendance. So finances are always an opportunity that students have to engage and try to strategize. Well, thank
You
you for
know,
responsibilities, ma'am.
Michael, as you see all the responses coming in, right? Whether it's struggling school with work, life frustrations, conflicting work, everything goes back to finances, I think. And
Mhm,
I think that's one of the beauties of ability to benefit is
mhm.
that students can be provided at least a little bit of relief so that we can minimize some of the impact that finances have on their life and that they could commit some time to be able to go to school, right?
Yes, absolutely, Yolanda. The money and the finances is usually the biggest impact that's I've seen associated with students in their life experiences. So, but I do see there's some social anxieties that are associated with it as well. Fear of failure. There was a great comment that came in during our last session, Yolanda, that the individual said that these students may have an extra barrier of fear or anxiety because they know they have to get their GED within a certain time frame. Otherwise, they can't continue on and go to school, which is something a little bit of addition. I remember when I was an undergrad, I remember I got a scholarship, and in the scholarship requirement, it told me that I had to keep a 3.5 GPA, and I almost became petrified because I said, "What happens if I drop below 3.5? Do I get kicked out? Do I lose my scholarship? Do I have to go back home?" So, knowing that these students that are in this program, that they know that they have to get this GED, they have to pass that tough subject that maybe they've experienced problems with, that also might add another form of impression that could cause difficulties with them psychologically. So something else, mental health issues are definitely a big part of it as well.
Yeah.
So colleagues, we appreciate your feedback there. I hope you all enjoy these. We find them quite fun. And we get to learn about these underlying themes between all people present.
Yeah. So let's take a look in terms of, and you all have kind of alluded to it with your responses of why supportive services matter, right? Um, because students are juggling complex responsibilities. They have to balance jobs and families and education. And without support, students would disengage, right? Also, the more support that we can provide and the wraparound services we can provide, the better success students can have. But supportive services not only matters for students, but it also matters for schools, right? And in the way it matters for schools, especially for the technical colleges or the state colleges, is that ability to benefit is a Title IV funding, right? So students, or I'm sorry, schools need to make sure that they are providing support services so that students can complete, they can persist and they can complete. Because if students do not complete their programs, that's accountability on the part of the state college or the technical college, right? And so the Department of Education has accountability measures that institutions have to meet, right? And they have to be also in compliance with financial aid. So if we want to be able to sustain programs, then that's why we have to provide supportive services to our students.
I totally agree with you, Yolanda. And we're actually going to talk about the compliance regulations that are associated with reporting these a little bit later on in this presentation. We realized we had two questions about that in our last session about what are the additional requirements associated with this. So for us, it's also recognized that we do want to hit those metrics to show the success of the students being able to get their GED, to being able to graduate, as we're calling it, out of the ability benefit and traditional college program. And that's why these additional support services and identifying them for this population, I think, is going to be so important. Yolanda, do you think that I'm just sort of curious on your interpretation? So recognizing that students and ability to benefit are able to get these Pell Grants potentially, potential Pell Grants, and maybe some other Title IV awards. If we were to add in those opportunities to students that once they are in a program, they feel that they are maybe a little bit more financially secure. What do you think would be the next barrier that they might have to experience, the next most predominant barrier in your experience? If we were to add some money into their academic programs for them to survive, what else do you think they would see primarily in your history from a student in that experience?
I think students have to feel a sense of belonging,
Yes.
right? Of recognition. So whether it's having some sort of support group or whether it's having a mentor, an advisor, a navigator, whatever you want to call it, someone that they know they can count on as they're facing whatever challenges they're facing in their lives, right? So take, for example, if it's someone that has children and they're needing help with childcare, they might not know all the different resources available within their community. A navigator might have that information from them. Or let's say someone doesn't have enough money to pay the rent. A navigator might know where to point them in the right direction
Mhm.
to be able to get that information.
I totally agree with you that when people have that sense of belonging and that sense of being a part of something larger, I think that just gives them a sense of security, and that security is going to allow them to be even more successful. So we're in essence with this program, we're really reducing a barrier. We're providing them some financial support that potentially they would not have had through any alternative program. That the amount of monies that can be given towards them because of their Pell Grant and these programs could give them additional money, not only to pay for their tuition and their fees, but then also to live off of. So they might have some additional income that they could use to leverage. So maybe they don't have to work two jobs, maybe they only have to work one job. But now if we reduce that barrier of finance, I definitely agree that the next barrier that they would experience is that feeling of ownership, that feeling of family, the feeling of community. And that's why I think we're here today. So yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
and I think this slide demonstrates some of the things that we already talked about, right?
Yeah.
Um, those students have gaps in learning, so they
Mhm.
need help with how to close those gaps. Um,
Yes.
building financial resilience, right? Addressing the money issue, so that they have money set aside for emergencies or for their basic needs. Transportation, especially for individuals that live in rural areas and they don't have a strong public transportation system, is an issue.
Mhm.
For individuals that also have cars, sometimes paying insurance, the car breaking down, all of a
Yes.
sudden creates a barrier. And so I've seen institutions that have started providing like gap
Mhm.
funding, right? For things like that that happen unexpectedly. Childcare needs, of course, and of course, housing instability has become more and more of an issue in Florida with the cost of rents going up and mortgages going up. You'd be amazed at the number of individuals that are homeless or are couch surfing, right?
Yeah.
Or doubling or tripling up within a household.
It's interesting that you talked about the financial resilience, Yolanda, because just this last week, I was talking with a student who was really successful because they were opening up their own checking savings account. And he still did not know. He thinks that he had the checking account, but he also thought it was savings. But for him, it was a pretty big monument. And he's had open for a couple months now. And he just thought that all checking and savings accounts would be associated with a monthly maintenance fee. And it just so happened that the banking organization they selected, in tandem with the amount of money that he had in his bank account, they charged him a fee because he didn't meet the minimum threshold. So I was able to tell him that there are, many other opportunities out there that he could engage with that wouldn't charge him that minimum fee because he's a student. And then he actually came back and told me that when he told his bank he was a student, that they gave him the student banking discount, so there was no more monthly minimum fee. But little things like that, that I often don't understand because that I don't have to worry about that. That's not a part of my situation. I have more than the $300 that's required for the minimum monthly fee. That was an impact to a student. So that's where these open opportunities and communications are so important for us to be able to have for our individuals. Oh, that slide came a little bit different, but hopefully we can all see here that in this situation we have, I call this our support and our strategy for ability to benefit. When we look at ability to benefit, I consider this a circular model. And the reason why I consider this circular is because when a student starts inability to benefit, that there are opportunities for them to continue on past ability to benefit. And that's something that we wanted to stress to our student population here is that this program is not an end to your education. It's an open opportunity to your education and for you to explore more opportunities potentially and further your education. So that's the nice part about this. This is a circular experience that within our ATB, our RTB circular process, this holistic process, it starts in this recruiting phase. And we're going to dive into each one of these categories in a little bit later. But we have our ATB recruiting phase. How do we recruit for ATB? Should we recruit for ATB? When we think about recruiting for ATB, we are targeting and identifying students that do not have a high school diploma or GED. Those are our primary populations, and those are synonymous with the populations that we're targeting to assist with adult education. So the nice part is that if you have an infrastructure for targeting and developing your students that are in adult education or students that don't have a high school diploma or GED or equivalent, then this is going to be a similar population, almost the same population that you would target for an ability to benefit recruiting strategy. So in there, that's going to be your foundation. And in that foundation, identifying those students, being able to engage with them, being able to open up discussions about what this program is, and then potentially even excite them with the opportunity by offering them formal awards if they are admitted and granted opportunities to engage with your school's ability to benefit program.
And Michael, that recruitment is so critical, right?
Yes.
In ensuring that there's some sort of orientation information session for the students so that they understand what the expectations are of ability to benefit. First of all, what all it offers, but what are the expectations, right? The more we're transparent upfront with students and provide them all the information, the better they'll be able to make decisions whether this is the right program for them. And again, that in the end will also minimize the number of students that I think drop out because they know going in what's expected.
I totally agree with you that when they recognize that this is an award, that this is something that's formal, that they feel especially recognized and they have additional obligations, very similar to me when I got my scholarship going to undergrad. I knew I had to get that 3.5. It had a little bit of extra stress to me, but I stayed motivated to get that 3.5 because I did not want to lose my scholarship in undergrad. So having that communication at that recruiting stage, I agree, is going to be so important. That's going to move us over to our identification and testing. So when your organization is engaging with their potential students, their potential student prospects, their potential student recruits, how do you identify them for different programs? And that's something that you'd want to have with your recruiters, with your admissions departments, having those conversations with them to identify how they identify certain populations. At Pensacola State, we often use something called student work tags. And these student work tags are little tags that we're able to assign to students so we can report on them and identify them and then engage with them and dex with them. And those are evaluated by admissions officers and recruiters. So that's one way that we do it, that we're able to add work tags into the student profile for us to be able to identify them as ability to benefit students. The next part associated with that is testing. Remember, in order for you to be a ability benefit student, in order for us to have an ability benefit student, there are different ways to meet that criteria. But one of the ways is testing. So your organization should have an approved ability to benefit test offered at their testing center. For us, it's the AccuPlacer. At Pensacola State College, we engage with the AccuPlacer because we like that test, how it has a lot of purposes in the state of Florida. It's also extremely cost effective for us. And then we can also bring those scores in through an integration and automation. So with your testing center, you want to do a debrief with them, and we're going to dive into the testing center a little bit later, but do a debrief with them because they also could be a great strategy to recruit and identify students, because our testing center at Pensacola State, we have students all the time that engage with them because they're taking the GED and they get the results and maybe they don't pass them. Our testing center is open to the public. Students that are people that are not part of our institution can register and take the GED here at Pensacola State. And they'll often reach out and talk with those individual testers, the testing administrators, and ask these questions. So they're a great group to engage with as well. After you have admitted these students into their program of study, they've signed their confirmation statement saying that they've been approved and they're going to engage with ability benefit and they're going to hit those mile markers, you got to get them into their course enrollment. And choosing a course enrollment is going to be extremely strategic for this population, as we saw that these students have barriers that potentially could prohibit them from being in a traditional course program. So making sure, as Yolanda had mentioned before, having those important academic advisors, those coaches, those people that can engage and strategize to selectively choose those courses for their program of study is going to be key towards their success as well. After they're enrolled in their courses and they're starting, they have to make movement towards that GED in adult education. So part of this eligible career pathway program is that the students have to be making progress and enrolled in supportive services to be able to get their GED. So they are simultaneously balancing their course enrollment success, their life, their jobs, their families, and getting that GED and making progress towards that GED. Simultaneously with the GED success, they have to be doing well in their courses. So they have to be hitting those milestones with their courses, studying for those midterms, studying for those finals, working with their faculty, meeting with their students if they're working on joint projects. So having that program success is also something that you have to worry about and provide assistance for in their coaching. One thing that's very important that I wanted to add in here that was a little bit of an eye-opener for me at Pensacola State is the Common Origination and Disbursement Reporting. It's called COD. This is going to be specific to a financial aid higher flash. This is something that's important for financial aid. Students in this program get reported to COD, the Common Origination and Disbursement Reporting Portal, a lot bit differently. So putting that in here, making sure that they get reported, that you're able to take in their data associated with what made them eligible for ability to benefit, that you're able to report on these students and accurately disseminate that information to COD is also a very important factor in this holistic ability benefit program. Having in there at the same time the spiral support services and additional intervention. Your institution may have an early alert system. So maybe a student that has a situation where their transmission blew on their car and they were able to come and they were isolated and stuck and they didn't have transportation. They were doing fine. They were succeeding academically, but they had this life experience that a transmission blowing out can prevent you from getting to school. Sometimes your organization can reach out and you can intervene and provide potentially maybe a bus pass or an alternative means of accessing the educational opportunity. I know that when I've taught, and I've taught for quite some time, over 15 years now, I do recognize that at the state college, at the technical college, at our level of post-secondary education, that our students do have life experiences. And sometimes they're not able to communicate with me directly via email because not everyone has internet at their household. When
Michael,
someone, yeah,
can I say regarding the COD and the
yes,
support services right there, that's another opportunity for institutions to kind of pick up if something's not quite right with the individuals making progress. Because connected to that COD, then your financial aid individuals back at your technical college or state college, they have to do what's known as satisfactory academic progress reports on students, right? And that's a check-in for them to see if that student is still doing well academically or if not. And if the institution is looking at that, then it's time to say, okay, we need some additional academic services or support services for these students, whether it's referring them to tutoring or going back to seeing an advisor or whatever it may be. But just another opportunity.
I think that's a really great point, Yolanda, is that recognizing that this iterative circle is definitely going to be an evolving circle. It's not a square, it's not a hexagon, it is circular because this is a movement that you're going to continuously evolve based on your population, your programs, your resources, and what your area experiences. In Pensacola, we do have mass transportation, but it's definitely not the same type of mass transportation when from what I experienced when I lived in South Florida. We had very different type of mass transportation down there. So this will definitely evolve, and thank you for pointing out those excellent details, Yolanda. When we look at this, the additional intervention is going to be great. Someone that's going to be that coach, as I said, someone they can reach out for that lifeline and maybe even work with the faculty on behalf just in case a life event happens for the student. And the last portion of this before they go back on to the next phase of recruiting is that having that coaching and graduation. And graduation for us in ability benefit means two different things. They can be graduating from your ability benefit program into the traditional college program, and they also can be graduating from your college into a degree or certificate pathway and earning that degree or certificate. So again, graduation has two different meanings in the circumstance, and then hopefully the students are excited, they want to continue, and they want to advance their education. In this process somewhere, they're going to earn their GED because that's the goal of this program, is to get that student to earn their GED. And then they can start with another recruiting iteration phase. So when I look at this, circular approach, I consider the phase one, the recruiting and the identification and testing. So when I look at the phase one, I think of recruiting the population, identify them, and making sure that they test using the ability benefit allowable test. And then the phase two, which is what we're talking really about today, this phase two is everything from course enrollment, from academic advising, from support services, from program success, GED success, all the way to graduation. So we definitely see there's a huge need for this discussion on the academic and the student life support side. So in here, I always like to identify some subcategories and some sub-success outcomes about our holistic circular model. That when we think about ATB recruiting, it's important to have these communications with your academic and your academic and student affairs staff. That in ATB recruiting, not all programs are going to be available for ability to benefit, and you don't want to get the students' hopes up thinking that they're going to go into one program when in reality it's not going to be a program that is able to leverage ability to benefit. And a great example that we've had here is a Title IV program that is, a program that is Title IV eligible versus a program that is not Title IV eligible. You might think that all programs that evolve in a industry certification or credential could be a career pathway program, but remember, one of the requirements of being an eligible career pathway program for ability to benefit is that it has to be Title IV eligible. It has to be able to be awarded a Pell Grant, and not all of our programs are. So making sure you have those conversations about selective programs is important. When you recruit high school diploma graduation status, we've talked about this in our past session. Not all students that leave their high school with some form of certificate is a certificate that makes them eligible for Title IV aid. So they could be a student that'd be eligible for this program as well. Recognizing residency requirements are important. A student that has, excuse me, moved to this area recently that does not have a way to establish residency could be an additional barrier for ability to benefit because the tuition differential is different. So always understanding the residency requirements for a student to gain in-state residency and therefore an in-state tuition rate is important. Having that branding for ability to benefit, I think, is important as well. We have been always evolving and looking at ways for us to invite students to be excited about this program. So having a brand for it is going to be so crucial in your ability program for success. So that's something for us to think about, is the branding association with it. Transcript assistance is great because if you have a student that has some transfer credits, that could be used as an eligibility opportunity for them to gain into ability to benefit as well. And then also maybe giving some testing guidance, because students that maybe are able to study a little bit for their AccuPlacer beforehand could study and achieve higher scores. And the scoring threshold is a minimum requirement for you to get in. So it's not just taking the AccuPlacer, they have to actually get into it as well. And you also want to be cognizant about disability support identification, because students that are in this program may need some accommodations because of a disability. So being able to offer those informational areas for your student recruiting pathway is going to be very helpful into the ability benefit strategy.
And for those schools that have a navigator that are able to help students through this process, not that the navigator is going to do the work for the student or the advisor, and no one should be doing the work for the student, right? They should be guiding, empowering that student. But many a times, and I've seen it throughout my careers, where students hit a roadblock, right? All of a sudden, they went in to complete their financial aid application, and they keep getting an error message, and they don't know where to turn or what to do, etc. If they have that trusted navigator that they could pick up the phone and call and say, I need help. I've tried reaching out to the financial aid office, but I haven't been successful. Can you help me? Right? I think that's a form of a supportive services that can really come in handy during this whole recruitment process.
I agree. And I think it almost gives that concierge experience, Yolanda. I know that when I go to certain places and they give me an assigned person, whether it could be my bank, and I do know I have a go-to at my bank, and that's why I still like going to my physical bank, is because I have someone that I know I can go to that will help me, that if I have a erroneous fee that showed up, that person is they're my agent, they're my person. So that I think is so important that you referenced, and having that there is so great. The identification and testing portion here, colleagues, in summary, they do have to complete their FAFSA. And on their FAFSA, they do have to have an eligibility based off of a calculation that's associated with the FAFSA outcome, and that's called your Student Aid Index, the SAI. So making sure they have the ability to complete their FAFSA successfully and send that to your institution is going to be a key for identifying students that are in a ability to benefit potential program. I'm sorry, ability benefit opportunity. They have to have that FAFSA filled out with a certain outcome from that FAFSA. Some important parts here is having the high school diploma codes understood. I can't tell you how many times our financial aid department has worked with a student and they didn't realize they didn't graduate with a high school diploma that allowed them to be able to qualify for traditional Title IV-A. They were in shock. They thought they had a high school diploma, but they didn't actually have the high school diploma that is the traditional high school diploma. So that is something that's something for you to think about as well in the identification. Transfer records and course evaluation for students is again another way of being able to look at a way for a student to get entrance into a program. And then also making sure that while you're doing this, being able to document it and report on it is going to be so key because you have to report this information to the Department of Education through COD, as we mentioned before.
And on the students' end, Michael, all this information that's being collected, I would always recommend to the students, keep a file with this information. Because if
Yes.
at any point your file is selected for verification, you might need some of the information that you've kept in there, right?
Yes. Yes, that's such a, I think that's a great that's a great college strategy just in general. Is that keep document, who did you speak with? Whom did you speak? What was their name? What was the date? What was the underlying, conversation? That way, if you have to go back and talk to someone else, or maybe that person is no longer at that organization, you could say, I spoke to Mike, I spoke to Yolanda, and they said that I could do X, Y, and Z. And having that, I think, is such a great reminder for anyone through this program is to keep your own documentation and write that down. So I think that's a really great idea, Yolanda. Course enrollment, super important. And we go back and forth about the course enrollment strategy. We do realize that these programs that have been approved for this awesome ability benefit opportunity, they do have some structure with us at Pensacola State. So the course sections for some of our vocational programs, we don't have an unlimited amount. We don't have 100 sections for a student to choose, that there is a limited amount of course sections that is very structured, that has a small cohort of students where we can provide that very evidence support model. And having that clearly defined for a student, I think is extremely important. We have had students that have said, gosh, I can only go to school part-time and I can only go to school Monday evenings. That could be a blocker for a student ability benefit program because they have to go to school, they have to be in a certain program of study that has been approved for your ability benefit. And having that discussion is so important with the students as well. And I think that's the strategy with that person, that coach at the course enrollment level, to have that communication available. Identifying goals and successes for your student is very important as well. And I think outlining that helps them achieve those as they are hitting those markers and celebrating them. Preparatory education is a great way to provide opportunities for students if they're able to fit that into their schedule. Developmental education courses are something that I hold near and dear to me. I've taught developmental mathematics quite a few times in my career, and that has been a great way to provide support structure for students that are looking to get their GED because it gives you some refined modeling structure. But that might be an opportunity if it fits in their course curriculum as well, is to look at developmental education. GED success. GED success. Yolanda, how many students have you worked with in your career do you think have been able to get through a great program, get their GED, and then go right into college? Are we seeing a trend in this number, do you think, or what do you experience? What have you experienced on your side?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that you asked that question, because in my last role, when I was the administrative director of adult and a technical college, that is a data metric that I tracked, because as part of that is I was trying to sell to those that I needed to convince, whether it's faculty or even when on either side, whether the technical college or the adult side, right? In terms of
Mhm.
why IET programs were important and adult education were important, is that I saw adult education programs to be feeder programs into our CTE. And so
Mhm.
as I looked at our enrollment, I would say probably about 25% of students enrolled in our CTE programs had a prior adult education experience within that particular county. because since we shared the same data system, a student data management system, I was able to track prior enrollments within that particular county. So I
Mm.
could then run reports to see who had previously been enrolled in adult education.
Oh, that's fast. So you saw this longitudinal movement of these students and,
Yes.
oh, that's so
And
that's
as
fascinating.
our IET programs increased, I saw an increase in student enrollments then in our CTE programs.
I totally echo that 100%, and I did not get to see the longitudinal movement as you have, but these are fantastic feeder programs for your organization. These students then are wonderful opportunities to recruit. They are motivated, they are excited, and they get that GED, and they're able to enter and get into many programs. And I love seeing that as well as I've seen that historically at PSC. I've seen students get their GED and they don't just do one CT program, they've done three CT programs. They've done welding, they've done plumbing, they've done HVAC, and now they have their own company. I love these stories, and getting them that GED is going to be so vital for their success, and then potentially for future cohorts of students for more enrollment at your institution. This is something that was different for me, and that's why I'm pointing this out, is that COD reporting. We talked a little bit about COD reporting earlier, so I wanted to make sure that I emphasize COD reporting because we don't want to leave out the ability to report these outcomes that are required because of the ability benefit requirements. So one of the reasons why we took a step in the movement towards ability benefit of doing a smaller cohort with a limited program with our first cohort of students is because we want to be able to manage it. We want to be able to look at it. We didn't want it to catch any. We didn't want to be caught off guard. So in this situation, we know that we have to be able to report on this. We worked with our enterprise solutions team, and that's the group that manages our data system, our student information systems. At Pensacola State, we use a student information system called Workday. So we worked with our enterprise solutions team. They confirmed with our financial aid director the ability for us to report on the ability to benefit students and all the information that we have to report to COD to be compliant with this program, because we don't want to put our Title IV eligibility at risk for being non-compliant. And when you engage with this program strategically, it's important to have tested that infrastructure, making sure that if a student placed into their ability benefit and they, for example, took the AccuPlacer and they got 3 certain scores that qualified them, you're able to report on that. That's very different than a student that achieved 6 credit hours in their program study that's Title IV eligible. You have to report on them differently to COD. So being able to report on those outcomes is something you want to test and develop and make sure is guaranteed and it's executable. So support services. Wow, there are so many opportunities for support services. We see that just before in our discussion, our team members saw that financial needs and financial assistance is really one of the most underlying themes of all students. But through ability to benefit, we're able to give some additional finances. We're able to give some potential additional finances to live and to make your house or to make your car payments, to pay your electric bill. So hopefully those additional fundings can help mitigate some of those high financial needs. But these support services are going to be so crucial towards the student's success. I thought about, when I looked at these different bullet points, which one is really something that stood out to me. So I talked to some of my colleagues, and interestingly enough, the learning management system orientation was something that they felt was very important. Having some sort of onboarding, some sort of orientation for how to use your learning management system, how students can navigate that to find their grades, to find their attendance, to be able to see their progress, and giving them a small orientation on your learning management system was something that my colleagues, when I showed them the slides, came back and said, that's such a great idea. It's been so great that we're doing this. So that's something just to think about as well.
And you mentioned learning management system. That's a perfect opportunity for adult education and CTE. If you're within the same district, but adult ed, you haven't or you're not using the learning management system that your technical college is using, you
Mhm.
might want to look into that and start using it so that students are being prepared while they're in GED or even when they're in ESOL, learning how to use those systems, right? Or if you don't have a technical college, but you're working with a state college, look and see what is your state college using as their learning management system And is that something feasible for our adult ed program to be using? Because the earlier you can get students familiar, the more comfortable they become, and it'll be one less stressor for when they get into their college programs.
Such good points, Yolanda, is to have that transition, and something that I've taken for granted because when I was in college, I used one. When I'm working in college, I've used one. So I just know about it, but I have to recognize that so many people don't. And so I think those are some great ideas as well to help with that transition. These students that are in these programs, connect them with your organization's CTE office. They may have programs like book loans that you can give to the student. They may have a computer loan that you can provide to these students, and immediately navigating them into your organization's CTE office is a great way to leverage current resources. I've really enjoyed conducting student interviews, and these student interviews, they do take some time, but it allows you to learn a little bit more about your student. You want to be engaging with them, but you also want to be understanding that they may have some precarious history. So being able to do that soft and gently, but being able to determine some potential risk is going to be something that your organization takes into account when you engage with these populations.
And
Um,
this is a perfect opportunity for schools. I know, like in the technical colleges, where they have to survey their students at least each semester in order to be in compliance for their Council on Occupation Education accreditation, that they
mhm,
could build in some questions that are specific to ability to benefit, right? Are you
yes.
an ability to benefit? And that way, then you can desegregate some of that data and look specifically at that group of individuals. And ask them those questions that you're needing to ask so that you can get some feedback.
Yolanda, I love that you love data science. That makes me so happy when I hear that you want to disaggregate data and you want to collect the data. That just makes me smile so much.
Well, and then I
So
want to do something with the data, right?
yes,
It's
yes,
actually reviewing it, getting our instructors to look at it, looking at our school, and then how
yes.
can we make change in order to best serve our students?
Totally agree with you. Yeah, we don't just want to collect it and house the data somewhere, that we actually want to leverage it and use it. So I think that's so key. So I totally agree with you. And then if there's any kind of free tutoring that's associated with students, you might have maybe some trio programs at your organization. Maybe you have some student organizations that are part of your institution that do tutoring as a service back to the community. Being able to identify those resources for your students, I think, is going to be so key as well to help them know that they have a network of support for their success, and they can go to someone if they need some additional tutoring. Academic success is going to be so important. I thought about when we thought about this program, I was thinking a lot about our student athletes. And I know with our student athletes, they're required to do so many hours of studying, and we ask that they go study in our library. We do some check-ins with them to make sure they're going to class. We do a lot of intensive intervention with our student athletes, and that really gave me a model for ability to benefit. We want to make sure that our ability to benefit students have the same opportunities, the same encouragement for them to be successful. So I almost emulate the same theory of providing academic structure to students, so that way they are successful. We definitely want to prioritize maybe regular check-ins to make sure that regular attendance, that they are able to attend class. And if they are missing days of their school, then we want to figure out why, and at an early stage. So that way we don't get to the end of the program, the end of the academic period, and next thing you know, they are not able to complete because they had situational issues. Encourage dedicated study time. Maybe put in there they have to dedicate so many hours of studying time at a lab, a writing lab, a math lab, or maybe in the library, maybe working with a tutor, having them document that. That might be a great way for them to be committed and for you to help them be committed. You definitely have to monitor their progress with GED exam and prep. So thinking about who's going to do that, thinking about how you're going to do that is going to be so key to the evolution of this program for your students. We never want to forget in Florida industry certifications and credentials, because students in these programs can earn them. Think about how they can earn them, think about how you're going to document them, and think about how they're going to report on them. Industry certifications and credentials are a great way to encourage success, and we want to be able to collect on them for these students as well, because they are students that we can potentially report these industry certifications and credentials with. And then often, I know with me, when I've had situations with students that are in a different needs class and someone informs me about that beforehand, I always appreciate having that. And I've had that situation. I remember the first time where I really had someone that was in a different needs class. I had a student that I was teaching who was blind, sorry, who was deaf. And the only thing that she wanted me to do was make sure that I spoke directly to her in the class. And having that conversation with that student that had a disability was so important. Not saying that students in these populations are disabled, but if we know that students are experiencing homelessness, for example, and I know about that beforehand, I don't think that I would ever change my experience in the classroom, but I'll be much more understanding that if someone's having homelessness and maybe they're 10 minutes or 15 minutes late to class, I understand if you are experiencing homelessness, that might be something you're going through, but I'd rather know about that proactively and as an instructor versus reactively when I find out later on that they're missing so much and they're not doing well. So having those communication with faculty and instructors is also going to be so important to a student's success if it can be completed at an early stage. And then coaching and
Then,
graduation.
Michael,
Man,
can I also
yeah, of
say, in
course.
terms of promoting ongoing engagement with faculty and instructors, also from the technical college side or the state college side, providing training to those instructors, right?
Mhm,
Because many of them don't come from the world of education like we do. They
mhm.
were auto collision experts or automotive
Yes.
experts, or they're academia, and they lose track of really who our students are, the
Mhm,
challenges that our students face, and they need that training, that reminder of how to work with these individuals, right? Because
mhm.
us and the actions that we take in education can change people's lives for the better or the worse, right? And
Totally.
it's okay for us at some point to say to someone, you know what, it's time for you to withdraw from school because the time is not right based on everything that we see, but it's the manner in that we do it.
Totally agree with you, Yolanda. I think you're echoing some really great statements. Is that in higher education, post-secondary education, we have people that are adjunct instructors, and their primary job is not necessarily teaching at their college, and maybe they're not as familiar with these programs. So knowledge and educational awareness for them is going to be so important. And I think that having a little bit of sympathy and empathy is crucial towards any kind of academic success. And I know personally, as I've changed myself. I know that I have seen students in different stories and different paths, and I appreciate so much more when I know about the opportunities that are available for our students. But I can't learn them osmotically myself. I don't go through orientation when I teach at a school. So having an advisor reach out to me proactively and send me an email saying, "Hey, Mr. Johnson, I want to let you know that the student is going for tutoring. I just want to keep you in the loop." I love when I hear that because that helps me know that the student's achieving something. They're going outside, they're finding resources. So having communication is so key, especially people that are not full time. Because I was not full time instructor for the first 8 years of my teaching. I was teaching just part time. So excellent, excellent, excellent point, Yolanda. Just some points about graduation and coaching that students here. Our goals are to get them the assistance they need to continue on because we hope that they all continue on after they graduate from Ability to Benefit and traditional college program. The specialized advising is going to be so important to help them not just be successful while in the program, but help them be successful after they graduate their program. Do they want to go directly into the workforce? Do they want to continue on into their education, maybe in another program at your institution? Maybe they want to go and get a bachelor's degree. Helping students navigate that is going to be so crucial for their success as well. Helping them identify financial aid resources for additional programs is going to be something that you want to think about when you work with your students that are graduating these programs. And also keep in mind basic skills assessment requirements for your programs of study, graduation requirements. And the academic advisors will be a little bit more familiar with the basic skills assessment requirements. So keeping those in mind as you're working with the student population, but also thinking that these students can complete their program of study and complete the Ability to Benefit program simultaneously or even one before the other is going to be a wonderful achievement for you to expand upon. So we've talked about a lot. Oh, yes, ma'am.
Yes, a lot of information, Michael.
Yes. Woo!
So let's take a pause. Are there any questions or
Hmm.
anything that stands out for the people out there that have joined us? Please share your thoughts in the chat box.
Yeah, that's such a good. Yeah, I know we are really giving an information overload,
Yes.
but the nice part is that you can use this. I had a colleague that wrote to us, Yolanda, after our last presentation, and And they said their organization locally is not leveraging ability to benefit, or they don't think they are, but they wanted to make a case to their academic department chair, or maybe it was their academic assistant department chair, on potentially using this program. And they asked if they could borrow some of our thoughts. And I said, please borrow away. I said, borrow away. So yes, if
Yeah.
there's any questions from colleagues, or we'd love to hear your thoughts on how this session is going, if you wanted to put that in the chat. We decided to break up from the knowledge transfer as much and give a paradigm example about recruiting and transitioning. And Yolanda had done some research with some Wisconsin organizations here. So this is a really cool example, I think, on recruiting and transitioning into.
Yeah. So let me talk a little bit about that. I don't see much coming through the chat. I think everyone's maybe a little bit of information overload. We know, especially when it deals with financial aid, and we have to bring that part in because it is ability to benefit. You're learning a lot of new terminology, COD, SAP, SAI. What does that mean, right? So you're probably taking that all that in. But yeah, while you're doing that, let's take a little bit in terms of what Wisconsin is doing with recruiting and transitioning. And we look at Wisconsin because Wisconsin, as a state, has done a lot of work with ability to benefit. Basically, they're a program that is statewide. Okay. So at the center of what they do is they have what's known as academic program specialist. And they're basically dedicated staff member who acts as a guide for the ATB students. So we talked about navigators, right? It could be called the navigator. You can call it whatever you want. But I know here in Florida, we use that term a lot, about a navigator. So they actually are guiding those students. And what they're doing, because again, in Wisconsin, they're tying it to their IET programs. So they have that close relationship with adult education. So they work in collaboration with adult education staff to identify students who are strong candidates for ability to benefit. So recruitment starts on the adult ed side, right? Those counselors, those navigators, those teachers, they're keeping an eye of who might be good potential students and for what programs, right? Also, student guidance is critical. As we know, the eligibility requirements clearly to students can be very, very confusing. The ATB eligibility requirements can be confusing. So they also connect the students to a designated financial aid representative who understands the ATB rules, because not unless you've done extensive training, and depending on how big the financial aid department is, sometimes people remember they're answering questions or they're looking things from the broader picture, financial aid. And they forget that there's this little component there called ability to benefit, and certain questions, certain things have to be done a little bit different. So they have a designated financial aid representative that handles all ability to benefits in order to make the process clear for students. Okay. Then there's ongoing support. The academic progression specialists meet regularly with the students, not just at the beginning, right? So they're monitoring how are they doing in school, ensuring they're meeting all the compliance checkpoints that are tied back to ability to benefit, right? And then once students earn their GED, they notify the financial aid office. So then the students transition from ability to benefit to full Pell Grant eligibility, right? They can continue on their career program. They continue with financial aid, but they're no longer ability to benefit. So this is an example of what's being done in terms of supportive services and helping students through that whole recruiting and transition process in Wisconsin.
What an interesting, I think I like this model that this Wisconsin school has, and it seems like it's very very ubiquitous, something that could be easily used, and these high level ideas are so important. I know that Yolanda, when I think about becoming full Pell eligible, that would be a huge accomplishment for the student and for the organization. That's a milestone for both entities, that they were able to get someone, from ability to benefit to college and being full Pell eligible. So definitely fantastic review, and appreciate that knowledge transfer on that school's paradigm example. I just wanted to just dive back in and give a quick recollection of what is the eligible career pathway program. We did cover this in the past, but for those that were not here, maybe don't remember, there are 3 criteria that's associated with being an eligible career pathway program, which is what's defined for a program study that's eligible for ability to benefit students. That the first criteria that's associated with that the student has to be completing adult education literacy programming that assists them with obtaining their high school diploma or equivalent. The student must be enrolled in the program must be an eligible Title IV program. So currently that program at your organization has to be eligible to receive Title IV funding. You can work with your financial aid department to determine which programs are financially eligible for Title IV aid. And then there has to be workforce preparation activities associated with a specific occupation or occupational cluster. So having those workforce preparation activities is also that third component to be considered an eligible career pathway program for ability to benefit.
And that is why IET programs fit
Love
right
IT.
in there, right? As long as they meet the 600-hour or the credit hour requirements.
I feel like this is a very harmonious relationship that I see the synergism between the IET and between the ability to benefit and the college goal, again, the GED and the high school equivalent. All of it's just harmoniously working together. But now we're adding the bridge and we're providing the financial opportunities to students that did not have them before. So I totally agree. The IET just hits the icing on the cake. So provides the icing on the cake. So in order for a student to be eligible for ability to benefit, they have to either pass a federally approved test to qualify for ability to benefit. And again, at Pensacola State, we're using the AccuPlacer, or they have to successfully complete 6 credit hours or 225 clock hours for a program that is Title IV eligible. And this is these have to be documented. So these have to be documented because these are requirements to report to that COD program again. And so once they meet one of the top squares, and they have to complete their FAFSA. And with that FAFSA, they have to show that they are in need of financial aid, the traditional Pell Grant. So they're going to have to get a student aid index value that shows that they are Pell Grant eligible. So they have to complete their FAFSA successfully. And then on that FAFSA, there's going to be a calculation called the SAI, and that SAI value is going to determine their Pell eligibility. So there's going to be simultaneously completing these different criteria for a student to be allowed to enter into the ability to benefit program. Whew, I know we are covering quite a bit of information today, Yolanda, and we still have people that are joining. So it's great to see that we've kept so many people along with us today. Okay, so testing center. Testing center is something that that we believe is so important to emphasize because the testing center at your organization is probably, I know at mine, not just entertaining students that are at your organization. They could be allowing people from the community register to take tests as well. So they have to be fully equipped to offer an ability benefit test. And we wanted to make sure they were equipped because on the application, which we showed last ability benefit session in session 2, there was a portion of the application that was dedicated towards knowing what your testing options were at your testing center on campus and confirming the test that was available to be used for ability benefit and when you started using it. So for us, we wanted to make sure that we had considered this when we put in to apply for our ability benefit program. You have to make sure your agency is equipped to administer the approved ability to benefit test. So you might have to engage with a contract, and there could be some time associated with getting contracts approved at your organization. That you want to make sure your testing staff is equipped and they are able to potentially identify ability benefit students and being able to track or refer them into programs, or they could refer them to career coaches or recruiters or admissions officers, depending upon different outcomes of their organization. I've talked to our testing director where she has had people come to her department and just say, I'm looking for assistance. I'm not doing well with taking my test. I've had a blocker, and she gets just word of mouth that comes in. So we developed a strategy that she's able to take down their information and identify and create a student prospect in our student information system. So that way our recruiters can reach out to that student and assist them with potentially this program. So does your testing center necessarily have to charge for tests? No, and we wanted to make sure that we do provide the ability benefit test at no cost to our students. But That may not be the option for your institution, but that was something that we wanted to do for our student population or people that were interested in this program, is that we want to make sure to provide at least one free ability to benefit test for students that are looking to engage in this program. Definitely consider potentially priority scheduling or voucher opportunities for students taking the GED Ready or GED tests. The GED Ready tests are a great way to practice and prep for the GED itself, and it gives a great opportunity for students just to experience the GED before having to go in and take the full-fledged GED. We are engaging internally and developing strategies for vouchers for our student populations, because our goal is to not just get them into the ability benefit program, but to get them complete and get that GED. And sometimes our testing center does get busy. So we want to work to get some very priority scheduling.
I really like those tips there of priority scheduling, because going back to when I was at an institution, the number of times that students were trying to get in for scheduling and they weren't able to, right? And so that can become a hindrance or a barrier from them moving forward. And then also the idea of providing free testing. And if the institution can at least afford the first one, at least do that, because that could be another barrier from students not going through in enrolling in a program. So those are great supportive services.
Thank you, Yolanda. Our testing director at Pensacola, she actually came up with the idea of a priority scheduling opportunity for them to be able to navigate, recognizing these students might be doing their very prescribed program of study and making sure that we can get them the testing that they need at certain dates. So she was really great about developing a strategy model for that. So again, that was developed because of our communication that we had across our campus with different leaders. And then we want to make sure that the IT staff has some way to bring these testing results into your student information system. So that's the SIS. So if you ever hear of that acronym, that's your student information system. And there could be additional technical support that could be needed to bring these records in. So if a student takes an ability to benefit approved test, and they get there's certain values, you want to bring those values in to articulate them to the student's record or their prospect record. And I recommend, even if they don't hit the minimum scores required to enter into ability benefit, having that history there shows that the student is taking it. It might give a different avenue for assistance, and maybe even providing some additional support services, like maybe a testing guide or maybe a YouTube series recommendation for them just to prep. So that way they can increase their ability benefit minimum test scores to qualify to gain entrance into the ability benefit program. So having that conduit is going to be so important for your students to get their scores into your system, so that way they could be ability benefit eligible. Okay, requirement of adult education and literacy while enrolled in the college's program of study. Wow, this is definitely something that is a very pulsating goal of it. Every time I read about ability benefit, they want to get the students their GED. Yolanda, I know that that in your history, when your organization thought about ways to provide adult education, the different modalities, what were some of your best experiences or some of your best tips that you have for people that are relatively even newer to this?
Yeah, let me dive into that with this one, with number one that says ability to benefit provides no specific guidance regarding the modality of providing adult and educational literacy education, right? And the reason for that is, remember, ability to benefit comes from financial aid. That's completely different than adult education. So while they say you have to provide, or I'm sorry, the students have to get a GED, they don't tell the colleges how they should help the students or what kind of instruction they should set up. And Mike, I think that's a great question in terms of then, what do we see out there, or what should it look like? That's where the colleges and should be working with their adult education programs, because they're the experts in setting up those GED programs that meet the needs for the students, right? Depending on where you're at, it may be that they're offering in-person GED classes. They might have distance. They might have hybrid, right? It might be a various combination. So why duplicate the work, and why just send a student off and saying, go get your GED? As long as you're working on your GED, you can participate in this program. Remember, that student has a higher risk of dropping out. So
Yes.
my advice is work with your adult education programs. And if you can tie it in to an IET program even better, right? It makes for a stronger program.
Agreed. The success outcome tied in with IET is going to be a total triumph. And just remembering, colleagues, that this is actually a question that you'll have to answer when you do your ability benefit application with the U.S. Department of Education. So they want to know about what is the method that your organization is going to leverage in order to assist and confirm that the student is making movement to complete adult education and literacy education while in your ability to benefit program. So this is an open-ended question that you have to report upon. At Pensacola State, what we are doing is that we are leveraging our LMS Canvas, and we've created GED courses for our students that are in these programs. These courses are really spiffy. They're unique to Pensacola State College. There are videos with a really great instructors that are helping them go through and guide these paths. They are giving some quizzes. They are giving some resources and some go-tos of where to get additional resources on campus if they're stuck in certain subjects. They're giving guidance towards virtual tutoring. So we have embedded that into our LMS. The students will have a GED coach that's going to be working through with them in this process. And that was the way that we can also manage and monitor their success, because we can see when they are using our LMS how much progress is being made and how often they're logging in and how many attempts they're making on every different quiz or every different type of video that has to be watched. We're able to report on that to help identify progress that's being moved. So that was the method that we chose at Pensacola State, but they were very generous in the application process that allowed you to submit how you are going to, as an organization, get students to complete adult education and literacy requirements while enrolled in their program and study. But again, you always want to follow instructional reporting hours norms required by our state statute. So that's something that's very important when doing this, that you want to follow the instructional hour reporting norms that are required by state statute. Whew. Okay, so I know we've used a term like LMS, and I always try to recognize, just like Yolanda said, we're giving all these acronyms. We have lots of acronyms in education, and what is an LMS and how does organizations find it? Organizations that have education traditionally, in my experience, have a LMS of some sort. But sometimes we don't use the term learning management system or LMS. Sometimes we call it Canvas, or we call it Blackboard, or we call it Moodle. And those are different types of learning management systems. And these are the reason why I like them so much, is because we need to be able to confirm that students are making progress towards completing their GED, also making progress in completing that program successfully. And this just allows them to work on their GED independently. They can work on their GED in the math lab or the writing lab, their GED prep in different labs with different resources and different tutors. And they'll have resources to complete this from anywhere. But again, that's one of the reasons why we've housed these resources in our learning management system, is in order to make sure we can monitor and provide them success. And then we can also allow some updates. So if we see something that's not the way we want it to be, we can readily make some changes.
Yeah, I really like the use of learning management systems because they can be built out so that it's a one-stop shop, right?
Mhm,
So let's say even for your supportive services, you could have a whole section of where
mhm.
students, if they're needing rental assistant, transportation assistant, et cetera, resources or mental health, right?
Yes.
Numbers and organizations of who they can reach out. Because sometimes they'll need that not during normal operating hours for your institution, but at least they have that where they can easily access.
I totally agree with you, Londa. The learning management system and that opportunity is going to be something that we are looking to evolve and to open up more for people, and even maybe expand it to some other testing strategies as well, as we can manage it. And once we have it, it's going to be a resource that we can keep and enroll students in as we so choose. So very, very cool opportunity. Intensive advising and coaching. We call it intensive advising because we want to make sure that it's intense. So they feel that the students in this program feel that they have security and that they have a guarantee that people are committed towards their success. So we are highly encouraging a dedicated academic coach or advisor to help build that strong relationship, to help accelerate a student in this program, helping them keep along a pathway that allows them to be successful both in their program of study, that they are also able to be successful within their GED movement, and they are also able to be successful within their life, because as we've seen, that they do have a lot of other situational potential blockers that could prevent them from being successful. So having an assigned intensive academic or student affairs coach or advisor, as we've seen in the model from Wisconsin, can be something that can really assist them with being successful with your organization. Student organizations. Never forget about student organizations. I appreciate student organizations and internal networking because as Yolanda mentioned earlier, that sense of belonging can help a student feel differently when they are part of the college environment, when they are part of going to college. It just gives a different experience to someone that is just coming to college and taking classes. So encouraging students to get involved in potential student organizations that allow them to experience that sense of community, for them to meet fellow colleagues and other students that are on campus and allow them to make friends when potentially and traditionally maybe they felt socially isolated, will encourage them to be successful. So recognizing that student support and student organizations are ways students can also feel committed to your organization and develop another sense of feeling part of your organization is going to be another avenue that can be leveraged towards their engagement and success. And we do recognize that some of the programs could be short programs. They might be just 2 semesters long or maybe even a year long. But again, creating and fostering opportunities for student involvement on the on-campus experience is going to give a meaningful experience to their college life. I know that when I was an undergrad, I was able to participate in different student organizations, and that really gave me a sense of belonging. I was able to make friends. I felt that I had really made my college experience, and that's something that we want to try to foster for these students as well. Federal Work-Study Program. I know that that I did not realize when I was an undergrad that I received a Title IV benefit. I was a recipient of the Federal Work-Study Award, and this is also a Title IV type of aid. So this is another type of Title IV aid that can be awarded to a student in ability benefit. And the work-study employment program is designed to allow college students to work and to study. And that's something that you want to work with your HR team or your college's student work employment office, because that was something that I appreciated. So when I was an undergrad, I was a college work study, and I got a job working in the College of Engineering where I was in charge of photocopies for tests, and I was also in charge of answering phones. And I didn't realize the benefit that I had at the time, but this was in 2000 that I was able to answer phones, and whenever I had to make photocopies for different instructors, I would make their photocopies. But then I was also able to study. So I was paid minimum wage. I was paid, but I was paid something. I was paid something, so I could work and I could study. And that's so different than someone that had when I was going to the library and I was not being paid to study. So that's an opportunity that you can think about and work with your financial aid department to potentially offer and prioritize students that are in these programs for an additional type of Title IV aid called the Federal Work-Study Program. There is a lot of research about students that are in Title IV programs, and specifically those that are in the College Work-Study Program. And I know at Pensacola State College, as I oversee our institutional research department, I'm a biostatistician, so I love studying trends. I love studying models. That students that are in our work-study programs, they succeed at a very different rate. There were researchers at the Community College Research Center at Columbia University, and they found extremely positive impacts of the Federal Work-Study Program. They found that students participating in federal work-study are more likely to earn a college degree. They found that students are more likely to be employed after graduation, and students could flex their schedules depending upon they could flex their work schedules depending upon their academic schedules. So an example that I have is that I have a work study that works in my office here at Pensacola State College. And sometimes if he has a high week of tests, usually, for example, midterms or finals, he might send a message saying, do you mind if I do not have to come because I really want to put forth time and effort studying? Of course, I recognize that. This is an additional benefit that we have a work study here, being able to answer phones. He answers phones for my office. But I give a lot of flexibility, which maybe is not as consistent if you're working off campus. And so sometimes he works his traditional load of hours, and then sometimes if he has to pull back and do some other errands for his life, I give him some latitude so that way he can focus on his studying. So leveraging and looking at the Federal Work-Study Program as an additional type of Title IV aid could be very beneficial to your ability to benefit students. And this is something that can be done with your financial aid department. Whew,
Okay.
okay.
So you shared a lot of information, Michael, in terms of
Yes,
what
this is
can
an
be done.
information overload session.
We're going to take a breath and we're going to look at some examples of what's being done nationwide, right? So as we were preparing for this webinar and I went and did some research, one of the things that popped up over and over and over again with schools that have implemented ability to benefit is having a navigator. So if you don't have a navigator and you're in ability to benefit school, I would encourage you to look at that. If you're looking to write an application to offer ability to benefit, then I would really urge you to look at making sure you have funds set aside for a navigator. And that navigator, it's almost like that coach on the side, right? That will help that student through the whole process, whether it's at the beginning with the orientation, the information sessions, as they go through financial aid, as they identify what career pathway they're interested in, helping them with uh, overcoming barriers that they might be facing, those kinds of things. So that navigator is one thing that I saw over and over again, no matter if it was in Wisconsin or Texas or Washington, that navigator is critical. Okay. All right. What are some other things that people are doing? So next slide, please. Some other things are weekly workshops where students are engaging in time management skill, uh, free application, of course, helping them with the FAFSA, uh, transportation assistance, helping them with that, providing childcare and housing support, partnering with organizations that offer those services, right? And then also partnering with entities that may offer free or low cost healthcare, which is also critical. And again, that varies from area to area. However, your navigator that you hire, if they are well aware of all these resources, or they should become well aware of all these resources, they'll be better able to help students. Okay. Also, this is another example. Again, coming back to Wisconsin Technical College, right? So in addition to those mentors, they're offering those workshops. They have gap funding or emergency grants, right? For unexpected costs of up to $500. So that's for that student that calls you and says, my insurance is due and I can't afford my car insurance. And if I don't have car insurance, then I won't have transportation to get to school, right? So it becomes one of those domino effects. With one little thing can then cause different things to happen. And so little things like $500 can help out for emergencies like that. And then of course the free tutoring centers focus on the GED to college. Okay. This is what Texas is doing at Alamo College District. Of course, wraparound services and going back to that case management model, that advisor. Again, it could be advisor, navigator, coach, progression specialist, whatever. It's that one person checking in on student. And again, you see the community partner referrals to housing, food assistance, legal, etc. And as Michael has mentioned earlier, that academic early alert system, right? Having systems in place to identify students that might be having issues academically and are in danger of either failing the class or, not getting their credit. So I think we've hit on these over and over again, but that's what we're seeing.
Yes, I think you hit some good hammers on the head there. And the nice part is that with that early alert system, your organization may already have that built in, but you can navigate ability to benefits potentially in a unique way. Just because we're getting closer to time, colleagues, we do have some other mentees, but we're going to skip through these just to make sure that we cover our last two topics and being able to get some information out to you. We wanted to make sure to talk about COD for a brief second. And this was that specific area that financial aid has to report to. And as we talk about additional resources the college may have to use, we have been focusing very heavily on the additional resources for student success that can be provided to your students. But potentially there could be additional resources that are added to other areas that directly do not see students. So in this situation, COD is the organization that this is the way that all Title IV aid and student information has to be reported. So we have to report the monetary amounts and transactions for our students. Students in the ability students in the ability benefit program do have to have those extra identifying factors like their program of study information, their qualification for why they are in the ability to benefit program, whether they got a certain test and certain scoring outcomes, whether they use transfer credits or internal credits they've achieved or clock hours they've achieved. You also have to report on their workforce occupational cluster and then also their GED completion and those outcomes. So definitely prioritizing this, I cannot emphasize enough because we never want to put a potential risk associated with not being able to report on this. So developing this infrastructure and making sure there's a good amount of resources associated with this additional requirement for reporting is going to be so crucial towards your organization's success in this program. Looking at keys to effective support services, we can wrap this around with some early identification. So accessing student needs during the student onboarding, and as Yolanda mentioned, in our colleges and technical colleges, we do have ways of identifying data and being able to use the data to be specific. Developing that we don't have a one-stop shop and one-size-fits-all model, and that individualized plans could be leveraged for the different programs, but also for the different students. Looking at different partnerships that your organization currently has with different community-based organizations to help identify those important resources for our students that might be experiencing different social situations is going to be very key towards the success as well. Having an ability to continuously monitor students in their evolution of the program, whether it's specific to the academic side, whether it's specific towards their GED success, or maybe it's just specific towards their life, having a way to be able to monitor and work with them continuously is going to be so important towards that success. And then also eventually developing and listening to your students. Students are in this program, learning from them, being able to evolve your program because of what they are experiencing might help you evolve and change the opportunities for future students in programs. So listening to your students and potentially surveying or engaging with them that are in this program will allow you to evolve and change this support as well. Okay, building a strong support network is going to be so important. When we think about the infrastructure that's associated with this, we definitely think that clear communication and coordination amongst our different colleagues at our institutions are going to be so important. We don't want students to go from one department to department 2 to department 3 to department 4, department 5, back to department 2, back to department 3, back to department 1, all to get help. If you can develop that neural network, that network of support and being able to assist students in mitigating all those situations in a one common area, that's going to be helpful, but that's going to take some training with your staff and your team members to make sure that you can provide that to your students. Having internal referral opportunities to both internal resources and external resources is going to be a great support opportunity for your organization as well. And then also being able to track and review student progress related to the use of these resources is going to be something that you can see will help you defend or potentially encourage the increase of additional resources for your institution. So being able to track students that are using different resources and how those outcomes are impacting them is going to be a great opportunity for them to be successful and potentially evolve them as resources. And then
wow, a lot of information, Michael, right?
Yes,
so
yes,
we're coming to the end. So finally, remember, ability to benefit is not just about access, it's about achievement. So supportive services play a vital role in helping your students. So always keep students at the center of what you do. Okay.
Yes, absolutely, Wanda. That's such great feedback. And colleagues, we know this is a lot of information. This is definitely something that we are very passionate about here at IPDAY, and Yolanda and I have been able to hopefully provide you some good information for you to take back and do some reflections. We do have a survey up on the screen for you to complete because we are always looking to do better and to learn how our services are for you. So if you could take time to complete the survey, we would appreciate that. We do have the fourth part of the series coming up this Thursday. So please keep that on your mind and register for that fourth part, which will be a culmination of our 3-part series. and of our 4-part series, the culmination of our 4-part series, the 4th part. So we look forward to your attendance, and for any questions we will have. We'll have more of an open dialogue session there, so people will be able to bring in any questions that you have, and we'll answer them freely, and hopefully provide you solutions going forward for your organization to leverage this benefit.
And Michael, just to be transparent on that 4th one, we will not have a panel as it was originally advertised. We had to pivot and make some changes, but we'll have the answer some frequently asked questions, watch a video from another state, and again, spend more time answering questions that people might have about ability to benefit. So see you on Thursday.
Thank you all.